Hello, and thank you for inviting me to talk. My name is Leehe. I'm a new faculty member at the Department of Psychology at Bar-Ilan University in Israel. I'm going to talk to you today about the effects of psilocybin on social touch perception in individuals with depression. So social touch. Touch is an important channel of communication, particularly in relationships with the people closest to us, and it can convey a wide range of different messages. Some can be even more powerful than language. Touch is of importance for signaling attachment and affiliation to close ones, and thus for creating and maintaining effective relationships. So in depression, individuals with depression often feel interpersonal difficulties. Social interactions can be less enjoyable and less intimate. They can be socially avoidant, and both adults and adolescents have relational difficulties that may cause significant distress for them. The connection between depression and social touch has been researched, and highly depressed individuals had a more negative attitude towards social touch than none to lowly depressed individuals. And the attitudes towards social touch mediated the connection between depression scores and interpersonal problems. So in recent years, there has been a renewed interest in treating depression with psychedelics. You can see here the magic mushrooms. Psilocybin is the active compound in magic mushrooms, and it is an agonist for the serotonin receptor 5-HT2A. You can see here a study with 12 participants who have moderate to severe depression. They received just one high dose of psilocybin, and their depression scores decreased 1 week later and even 3 months later. So I'm interested in looking at the effects of psilocybin on social touch in depression. And there is also a connection between social touch and serotonin. This was researched with healthy individuals. In the research, they did tryptophan depletion, which decreased serotonin levels by 70%, and they found reduced ratings of closeness and intimacy in social touch. And also when they gave healthy participants SSRI, they found it increases ratings of closeness and intimacy in touch. But this was in healthy participants. I'm looking at what is the effect of psilocybin on social touch perception in depression. To do that, we use the observed social touch task, which has been validated in several studies. Participants were presented with pictures of two humans or inanimate objects, either touching or found in proximity to one another. We had 20 photos for each condition. The participants were instructed to rate the extent of pleasant or unpleasant emotions arising from the photos. And we also administered the social touch questionnaire, which is a self-report measure for aversion to social touch. We gave synthetic psilocybin, not the actual mushroom. We gave 25 milligrams, which is considered a very high dose. And we did the task and the questionnaire 1 week prior to the session and 1 week post-session. This is an add-on study to a double-blind, randomized between subject placebo-controlled trial, and ratings for each condition were measured before and after psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy sessions. Each lasted around 8 hours. And compared between the placebo and psilocybin allocation groups, we had 5 in each group. So these are the results. You can see here the pre-dosing and the post-dosing. And we found that emotionality ratings of humans' social touch increased following psilocybin dosing compared to placebo. You can see here the psilocybin in purple and the placebo in blue. We also found in the self-report measures that the liking of familiar physical touch increased under psilocybin, but not under oxytocin. And also the dislike and the overall aversion to physical touch decreased under psilocybin and not placebo. So we found that human social touch was rated as much more pleasant after psilocybin administration. Psilocybin is known to cause something that is called ego dissolution, a loss of boundaries of the self, which promotes a feeling of connectedness with other individuals. And this feeling might have facilitated the increase in ratings of pleasant feelings that emerged from the side of social touch. These results add to the accumulating evidence of the role of serotonin in the processing of observed social touch, and future research would benefit from a healthy control group and research into the neural mechanisms of the effects of psilocybin on the perception of social touch. So in conclusion, psilocybin increases pleasant feelings arising from the perception of social touch and reported liking of social touch. These effects might explain in part the beneficial influence of psilocybin on individuals with depression. And thank you for listening. And I want to thank all the funding bodies that funded this important study. Thank you.
Thank you, Leehe. That was a very, very clear and concise talk. I appreciate it very much. I'm not going to steal any time from our two experts who no doubt, especially Rochelle, who I know is eager to jump in, but also Anna, both of whom who have done some work on social touch. So go over to you, ladies. Go ahead,
Okay.
Rochelle.
Can you hear me? So yeah, I can start. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Leehe. It's a very nice talk. I really like the slides. However, that was a lot of information to take in as well.
Of course, yeah.
But of course, we didn't give you much time. So I think that just as kind of like as a starting feedback on a talk like this, sometimes it's difficult to know exactly what you want to tell the people. And so I really liked your study because it encompassed things like the medication side, and then you've actually got all the touch side as well. You've got the basic research. So you're kind of bringing these two things together. However, it was kind of difficult to even follow some of the background because it was really very fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I try to put like all the information. I had like 3 different parts going on, like 3 different moving parts, and yeah, I try to tie them all together. It's usually a talk that I give in like 15 to 20 minutes, 105, but I really tried to cut back on some of the things, but I didn't want to lose any information. So I understand. Thank you for that.
I have I'll jump in quickly that there was an amazing article in Nature, which I popped into the YouTube live stream earlier today, but I will refer you back to it. And if you missed that, I will put it in again, where they deal with exactly this issue. It's aimed at people giving any length of talk, but how to just focus in on what content can actually be captured in that amount of time. And as we move into a time where people have there's no space for 30-minute talks, 45-minute job talks. You need to be able to succinctly give the crucial, the key aspects of your work in a small amount of time. So if you're interested, I'll pop that into the chat, but I would definitely concur with Rochelle. There's a lot for you to say. You're going to have to pick and choose, which is obviously hard.
Mm-hmm. In fact, that's one of the most difficult things, I think, of giving any kind of talk is you need to understand your audience. So I'm kind of more in this field, so I did understand it. I really appreciate it. I really like the findings. It's something that would be nice to discuss as well. But then if you're giving it to a more general audience who don't know the background, you really, like Merle says, you really have to think about who you are talking to and what you want to tell them for every single talk. So I give talks quite often, and these can be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or it can be an hour. And I still want the audience to come away with a message. In an hour, I've got a lot more time to tell them a lot about the detail, but in 5-10 minutes, it really is the highlights. So it's difficult to give all the background, even though, you can see, like, for example, when you write a paper, you see that all this is relevant, all this is really interesting for your story, but you just can't concentrate on all this in a short talk. So I think that's general advice that I would give to you, to everyone, is what is the message that you want people to walk away with at the end of the day? And if anything, when I give a talk, I prefer to give maybe a simpler talk, or at least even start off very simple, and so that people will walk away with something rather than like, I didn't understand anything kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
If Anna has anything to add on that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, do you want to hop in?
Yes. Sorry about that. It's just exactly in the same moment somebody called me. It's just like coincidence. Yeah. So thank you so much for the talk. Just wanted to say, as feedback and advice. So from my past life as a journalist, so I learned that the most important thing when you talk is just to hook the audience. So it's like I see this like it's not a mistake, but approach to very young people that they are very passionate about their knowledge and they want to share this knowledge as much as possible and give a lot of information. Then too much information kills the information. People ask like, oh, what's that? And then you leave the room with just like, oh, that was a lot. And then if you go back, it's just like they will take just like one line, and then there is no coherence. So I think that the right approach is like to not confuse the paper writing with the talk writing, because you're not addressing to the same audience. And in a paper, you target a journal, you have a very specific audience, and in a talk, you don't know who is coming. There's like many people, and you want to attract as many people as possible. So what you want in a talk is to hook the audience in a very clever way, such as actually after the talk, you actually start engaging with them. So actually the real science and networking, it's happening after the talk. If nobody comes after you with, and sometimes I really like to leave them a bit in suspense, to just like come to me and talk to me. And then after the talk, during coffee breaks and everything, you have a lot of time to actually discuss and network. And there is actually where the communication and network is happening. And this is why it's so important to actually have in-person conferences for early career researchers, because this is where the networking is happening. And this is why COVID was such a disruptive way for very early career people, because you don't have this connection, which is super important. But other than that, I mean, scientifically, the content of the talk was like super nice and impressive. I would like to read that paper, I would like to hear more. Also, as a philosopher, it's like, ooh, talk about ego dissolution. What is, because some people would agree, some people would disagree. So I felt like, yeah, so it's a lot of things. I would like pick some slides and say, oh, I agree with that, but where is the argument? And then the entire approach will be like, oh, well, that's just too much. And then people will be like disengaging, because in a conference you have like sometimes parallel session with like loads of people. Just go there with a target, just like to hook the audience with what you're doing, because it's important and clever. And then let them come to you after the talk, and then you engage in network. But again, thank you and well done.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Very, very well done. Thank you, Leehe.